if? Deku was the son of midnight, part 2. Now, where I left this what if off, Izuku and Toro Hagakure just beat Bakugo and Ochako Uraraka in the Heroes vs. Villains assignment. From there, All Might would then tell them to go back to where they were going to watch the rest of the classes do their Hero vs. Villains test as well. Now, once all of the classes finish, or all of the students finish, they all are tasked just to go back home and get a good night's rest, as tomorrow they will be going on a field trip for rescue training at the USJ. All the students would say, alright, as they would go back to their house and sleep. Izuku, of course, waking up and still being sleepy. Now, Izuku would walk to UA with his parents after training from 3 a.m., as he would then get there and from there would just sleep until the rest of the class would make it inside. From there, Aizawa would then sit up at the front of the class and tell them to all go down to the locker rooms, either put on their PE uniforms or their hero costumes, it doesn't matter to him, as they are going to go to the USJ in a little under 10 minutes. And if you're late, they're not going to stop the bus for you. From there, kids would hurry down to the locker rooms, get changed into their hero costumes, and would then hop onto the bus. Now, if you're wondering what Izuku's costume is, it's like Aizawa's, but maybe mix in like how Midnight can tear off part of her clothes to try and get the gas, her cork gas, out to knock people out, but for Izuku, the cork racing gas. Now, Izuku and everyone would be on the bus, as Tsuyu also would then say how Izuku has a similar quirk to Midnight, as Izuku then says, yeah, well duh, she's my mother. As the class looks on in shock, they're like, wait, your parents are two pro heroes? That's insane! I thought Todoroki's had a cool life having one pro hero as his parent. As Izuku just says, yeah, sure. It's cool and all until you have to train a lot. As they then say, wait, why'd you have to train? As Izuku just looks at them like they're all idiots, as he says, my father's Aizawa, of course I had to train. As the rest of the class would just say, oh yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As Izuku would then get off the bus after it arrives, as Aizawa would then meet up with 13. Now from there, they would start to explain what they will be doing as they walk into the USJ, as a massive purple portal opens up, as Kirishima then shouts out, whoa, they even have fake villains here too! That's insane! As Izuku would then immediately rip off part of his sleeve, as his cork erasing gas would flood into the area. As the students would be like, Izuku, why'd you release your cork gas? Now we can't use our corks against them. As Izuku just says, don't you see it, you idiots? Those are real villains. As all of Class 1A's eyes widen and say, what? They're real villains? Izuku just says, yeah. Now if you haven't trained in fighting corkless, you're basically useless here. So, leave it to me and my father. As Izuku and Aizawa would then jump down and start to just keep on punching and getting rid of these small-time thugs. Now, if you're wondering why they didn't get overwhelmed, it's because these are small-time thugs that have relied on their cork. They have never trained in 1v1ing or fist fighting without using a cork. So that means they're dependent on using their cork to win. And since they're dependent on it, Izuku and Aizawa can easily defeat them now that they're corkless. Izuku, from there, would basically just keep on defeating them with Aizawa until none of them were left. Shigaraki would start scratching his neck very violently, as he would then say, Kirogiri, send out the Nomu. As the Nomu would then come out from behind Shigaraki, as he would then charge towards Aizawa and punch him right across the face. Now, if you're wondering if the Nomu still has its corks, No, it does not, as the corks have been erased, and the gas has pretty much just dissipated, being soaked into everybody around them, which, let me explain how this gas works even more. Now, Izuku, once he releases this gas, it basically just goes all around the area that he wants to be affected, and from there it would soak into each person. So let's say the people closer to him would have this cork erasing gas for longer if more amounts of it were soaked into them. But the average time would be around 30 minutes until they got their corks back. So Izuku would just keep trying to fight this Nomu, but its strength pulled too much. I believe in the anime, Shigaraki said something about the Nomu, even without a cork, having the strength of All Might. So Izuku would yell for Ida to rush out and try to get All Might, and hopefully get there in time before the 30 minutes would run out. Now Izuku would continue trying to fight this Nomu, trying to protect his knocked out father, but that wouldn't work as well. Izuku would just be uppercutted into the stomach as he would send flying into the wall, becoming knocked out. As Izuku, now knocked out, would just be forced to see on the sidelines, blinking a few times, but not really coming back into consciousness. So Izuku left out possibly some of the strongest kids in Class 1A were forced to try to fight this Nomu, with absolutely no luck. None of them could ever compare to All Might, even like Todoroki or Bakugo, which that leaves all of Class 1A defeated, as they would then be captured by Kurogiri, having the 30 minutes been up, as they would then be sent to a warehouse and tied up. From there, Shigaraki would start to question them and ask them certain things. Now we cut back to Ida, who was rushing back with All Might to the USJ. As they arrive, they'd see thousands of knocked out villains, but absolutely no traces of any of Class 1A. The only person that was there was 13 and Aizawa, who were in fact both knocked out. Now Izuku, of course, would have been taken as well, as we cut to see Midnight crying that her child had just disappeared or been taken. Now we cut back to Class 1A, who was just sitting there in this type of warehouse, as Shigaraki said they've made a cell for them and for all of them to move on into it. They say they will keep these cork erasing collars on, but they can have free roam in this prison cell thing, as Izuku would then whip out a pack of cards and place it on a cardboard box. As he says, anyone want to gamble? As the entire class just looks at him like he's an idiot. You know we're all less than 21 and 18, right? Suzuki says, we're trapped in a villain-based prison. You really think that's gonna matter? We have pretty much nothing to do but play blackjack and poker. As the entire class just nods as they start to do that. Now, I get it, some of you guys probably have never heard of blackjack or poker. So yeah, I'm not going to explain it. Izuku and everyone would just continue to play that, as Shigaraki would walk through the door and just hand them some food, each of them getting only one slice of bread. To which Izuku would then say, alright, that's it, I bet a piece of my bread for... What do you guys bet? As everyone would stack their breads up, as Izuku would then win somehow and would have pretty much all of the bread. Which Izuku then says, man, you guys have never gambled before. Alright, each of you now have half a loaf of bread. I got them all. Just kidding. That wouldn't actually happen. As Izuku and the rest of the class would just be sitting there waiting for something to happen. As Izuku then gets an idea. Hey guys, do you think I could use my cork? As the entire class just looks at him, they say, what do you mean? As Izuku then says, well, my cork has something to do with erasing corks. So do you think an erasing cork could be erased? To which the entire class just looks at him like he's an idiot as they say, well, how have you not come up with this before? as Izuku would just laugh and say, I don't really know. So, when Shigaraki walks in, should I try to do that? As they say, sure, go for it. As Shigaraki would then walk in, as Izuku would then release a massive amount of cork erasing gas, to which Shigaraki would then start yelling at them and how they could use their corks. Now, Izuku, using this gas to his advantage, would then break off most of the cork erasing collars for most of the kids there. Now, Izuku would then try to break the bars, which he was somehow able to do. Don't ask me how, let's just say anime logic. Izuku, breaking free, would then roam into a bar with the rest of his class as they see Shigaraki and Kurogiri sitting there with Shigaraki rubbing his eyes. As basically they just break through the door and say, heck yeah, it's time to escape! As Shigaraki would just look at them like, oh my god, what the... Oh, how'd you guys escape? As Shigaraki would then say, Kurogiri, do something! As Kurogiri would then make a portal right below the students, as they would then fall onto the center of the UA premises. As Shigaraki would then say, Kurogiri, where did you send them? As Kurogiri would then say, I sent them to UA. As Shigaraki would yell, you idiot! We're gonna keep them and ask for ransom money. We're still low on funds, you idiot. Can't say demonetization words. Can't do that. Sorry. Izuku and everyone else would just have a very painful headache as they would wake up to see all of the UA teachers just sitting there like, so you guys are back now? How was it like being captured by villains? As Izuku would then get tackled by his mother, Midnight, and say, oh, Izuku, I missed you so much, I can't believe you were gone. As Izuku just like, haha, yeah. Can you get off me now? As she would then be like, oh yeah, sorry about that. And now a quick ad break. The ad is over, we can get back into this what if. Now, Izuku and the rest of the class would then be told that they have 2 weeks off because of the USJ attack, as UA is going to up the security, and since they all got kidnapped, they don't want that to happen again, so now they will live on the UA premises, along with the teachers also living there as well. The Class 1A teacher will live up at the top, while the other teachers will have their own, or will live in their own classes, besides Aizawa and Midnight, basically. Now, Izuku, of course, would have his own dorm like everybody else, as Izuku would then be training, and once those 2 weeks pass, Aizawa and the rest of the class would then be told that the UA Sports Festival will be held in just one short week. That week would pass very quickly, as they would all walk into homeroom, as Aizawa would then throw them all of their PE uniforms and tell them to go get onto the bus as they drive into the center of this weird complex type thing, as Aizawa would then tell them to get out as they would walk into the locker rooms, as the boys and girls would split up and get changed into their PE uniforms to participate in the UA Sports Festival. Izuku, of course, would just sit there waiting as the rest of the class would walk out once the loudspeakers would come over and it would say for Class 1A to walk onto the field. Izuku, of course, would walk on with like everybody else as he would then hear Midnight say, "Can the UA first year representative come up?" As Izuku would then start to walk up there, as he would be given the mic for a speech. From there, he would just say for everyone to try their hardest, as he's looking for a good fight or rival. And then Izuku would walk away. Now, from there, Izuku would then just be waiting with his class for the first event to get announced. That first event would be the race. Now, Izuku and the rest of the class would then walk on and be ready for the race as the doors would open up with President Mike yelling for everyone to go. Izuku, basically not wanting anybody to try to get ahead of him, would use his knockout vision and knock out most of the people around there, leaving only a certain few. Now, the people he did knock out were probably the most strongest, like Bakugo and Todoroki. So Izuku would then start running ahead, with only a few people following behind him, having been in the back so he could see pretty much everybody. Izuku would then just run around the 0 pointers as he would make it to this rope cavern type thing, and with his agility that he trained for 10 years for, would easily just walk across this rope with ease. From there, he would make it to the minefield, to which his speed would already be enough to just run right across it. Remember, Izuku trained non-stop every single day for 10 years. Of course, he's going to be very, very strong. Now, Izuku would then, of course, be the number one winner of the race, as the other people would start to wake up as they'd start to run as well. However, most of Class 1A and Class 1B were already ahead of them. Now, if you're wondering how Izuku's knockout vision works, if the weaker you are, the longer you're knocked out for. The stronger you are, the less long you're knocked out for. So the stronger Izuku gets, the more you're going to get knocked out. And also, it combines his power with theirs to see how long they're going to be knocked out or sleeping for. Now, Izuku would have gotten first, with Bakugo and Todoroki coming in 9th and 10th, with the people he didn't knock out having that big of a head start that they already finished the race just as Bakugo and Todoroki would wake up. Now, the crowd would see how Izuku's playing this, as most of the hero agencies watching this to want people for their internships would see this as they'd think, that kid's very, very smart. Write it down as one of the people we should ask to join for the internships they'll be doing after this. As basically, they know if Izuku needs to sacrifice somebody to win, he's probably going to do that unless it's a unnecessary win. Now, once everybody finished or got eliminated, they would then say that the second round is the Cavalry Battle. Now, Izuku, of course, would have to wait 20 more minutes before he could use his quirk. Well, not exactly, as the race took almost an hour, having most of the people knocked out. So Izuku, only using his quirk once, would have his quirk erasing gas back. So he would then just wait for the Cavalry Battle to start. Now he would choose his team, with his team just being Toro Hagakure, Ochako Uraraka, and let's say Tokiyame. As Izuku would then just be the horse as the Cavalry Battle would start. As Izuku would then release his quirk erasing gas, as everybody's quirk would just be gone. So Izuku, all he would have to do is dodge everybody's quirks. Now the only person that would have an advantage was Mei Hatsume. Let's replace Toro in this for Mei Hatsume. So it's like the canon thing with Ochako Uraraka, Mei Hatsume, and Tokiyami. To which Izuku would just ask Mei Hatsume to use her gadgets to allow them to easily dodge any of the attacks that people would try to send towards them, which would just not even be attacks. It would just be people charging at them and hoping to get their hands on that 10 million point headband. Now, of course, Izuku, having Mei Hatsume on his team, would easily be able to win with her rocket boots and all the random gadgets she randomly had on her that allowed them to very, very easily just dodge anybody that would charge at them or throw punches or kicks at them. Now, Izuku would basically just use the quirk erasing gas after the 15-minute mark as well, and use it right at the end just to ensure their victory. And then he would get first place with the 10 million point headband, as they would then have a 5-minute break to get up into the stands and wait for the 1v1 tournament. However, Izuku couldn't have that 5-minute break, as he had the 5 minutes to get ready to fight Shinso, who, if you don't remember, is in Class 1A, which he replaced Mineta. Now, Izuku, of course, would walk into that fight quirkless, not being able to use his other quirk, and his quirk erasing gas would just be useless because he might want to use his knockout vision in another battle to somebody that's very weak. So Izuku, of course, would go into this fight quirkless. Having Shinso being in his class would know Shinso has not trained his quirk or body very much, knowing that this is going to be probably a very easy win fighting quirkless for himself. So the match would start as Izuku would run right at Shinso, not even answering any of the questions, knowing that he has a brainwashing quirk, as Izuku would then punch Shinso right across the face, as Shinso would then just be flung right outside of the arena or battle zone, as he would instantly lose. Shinso thought Izuku was stupid enough to answer a question from him, which Izuku was not. Now, the next battle would be Izuku versus Todoroki, who Todoroki won his fight against Shinso. So, Todoroki would start off by sending a massive iceberg right at Izuku, just like he did against Suro, not Shinso, as Izuku would very easily dodge this. Remember, he's trained for 10 years. Sure, Todoroki is trained for almost 10 years, but he wasn't really training. It was just him, somewhat training against his will, and he was never really into it, unlike Izuku, who fully tried with his training. So Izuku would know he would have to use his quirk erasing gas, and there's probably a 30-minute time skip before you'd have to fight another person. So he would use this gas on Todoroki, which would cause him to lose his quirks, as Izuku would then run right at Todoroki, punching him across the face, and then would slam him into the ground. Remember, Endeavor didn't really train Todoroki in fist-to-fist combat, at least I don't think he did, and only trained him in his ice and fire quirk. So, since that never happened, Izuku would easily be able to win in a fist fight against Todoroki. Izuku would beat Ida very, very easily, with him just using his quirk erasing gas against him, as Izuku would go into the final fight. Both him and Bakugo are very, very strong. Bakugo is also strong even when quirkless, so Izuku knows that this is going to be a somewhat of a tough fight. Izuku would start off by erasing his quirk, which would then lead into a 1v1 fight, fists only, or maybe even kicks. There were no quirks involved in this final battle, just to show how strong they are even without the use of their quirks. Izuku, of course, would start off by punching Bakugo in the face, which Bakugo would counter with an uppercut. Now, this would continue going on with some punches getting blocked and some kicks even getting blocked, but someone get through. Both of them looked almost the same in skill until Izuku would just laugh. It's time to start toying with you, Bakugo. This round is over. As Bakugo would then say, "What the hell do you mean, Izuku?" As Izuku would then straight up punch Bakugo right in the face. Now, that punch would be as strong as possible, as Bakugo would just collapse. He used so much energy fighting Izuku, which Izuku had a lot more energy to use. Remember, he's been training for 10 years. Bakugo, sure, he trained, but he never really trained in fighting. He was good at throwing punches just because of his strength. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. I hope you guys do enjoy this series so far. I know part 1 absolutely just blew up for me. 5,000 views in the first day, which is absolutely insane. Now, I thank you all for watching once again. Thank you to my thumbnail editor. He just changed his name and I can't really remember what it is. But I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.